Why, hello. I have good news. The ads are gone. We will not have to worry about them today. And what a relief it is. Oh, one quick disclaimer. My dog has joined us again today, so if you hear any background noise, it's most likely him trying to look out the window. You know, it started snowing here again. So much so I can't even see the road. Has it been snowing where everyone else is? It's been pretty bad here. Which of course brings me to a good topic. How is everyone doing? I hope good. In spite of the weather, we've been alright. It's been tricky getting outside though. Shame too. Been wanting to bring my dog out all week. He doesn't really do good on snow. Something to do with the ice. He has a problem about slipping. He is just not careful where he goes. So, enough of me chit-chatting. I promised a tutorial, and that's what we're going to do today. An OC Animatic tutorial. Now, I'm not a professional by any means, and I've been told many times that my animation skills have improved over the last few years, but I don't want to put myself over anybody. Because after all, we're all learning. And I had only recently stepped into the world of true animation, and I'll show you what I mean here in a second. But yeah, an Animatic was my humble start, and maybe it'll be yours too. I drew my boy Remus today for our opening card. I'll have to say goodbye to him. Alright, so where we left off, I got my character Clay up in the morning. And I shared with you all how I animated not only the expression change, but also taught a bit about how to tell a story in animation. We're kind of going to do the same thing here, except this time we are getting him to go from this side of the screen, the left. Whoops, excuse me, let me change my pen. From the left to the right. Now, an important thing to remember when it comes to making an animatic is I'm not just putting him on the screen for the sake of being on the screen. As always, I am trying to tell a story. And in this case, I'm aiming to have him run through the door and rush to the back because he's late for work. As mundane as that might sound, these are the bare bones of what an animation starts with. If we don't have an idea of what we want to draw, then what will we know what to draw? We wouldn't. We'd be lost. Now, I did some rough sketches, so you all wouldn't have to watch me try and work that out. And to see them, we need to pull up Animation Assist. Bear with me as I reconstruct the animation. So that's animation in its rawest form, the very beginning. And here's the thing to know about run cycles, because he will be running. Detail is going to be your enemy in sketching. If you try to add every detail, like this shot of him right here, let's take away the background. If you tried to animate every shot, excuse me, if you tried to animate every shot like this, you'd have some trouble. Because trying to animate every moving part as it is, with no knowledge yet of what you want, will only complicate the process. So I make 1 or 2 frames that look like this to remind me what the character will look like when I'm done. But how I start a project is going to look something more like these, where it's just an outline of the character. And don't remember, we're not aiming for cleanliness here. We're just trying to get an idea for shape and emotion, as well as motion. And I want him to fly through the dining room and head off screen. So you guys are going to be here with me as I clean up the sketches. Now, it's been a while since I've cleaned up a sketch. I believe once you have this stage of animation done, it's alright to tidy up a little bit, but I'm still not gonna overdo it. One of the more difficult pieces I've ever animated was a run cycle, and it was for an animatic made a little over a year ago now. You can still find it. It would be on my shorts feed. Excuse me, words today. The shorts feed called All Time Low. And at the time, I just kind of threw character poses on the screen and hoped for the best. I would not recommend that, though it did teach me a lot about motion. But at the end of the day, it's good to have a plan when you begin these things. Which brings me to the arc. For this project, the arc's a bit too high. I put it in before I put any sketches down, but hey, that's what we do. We want an idea of what we're planning. So for this, when a person runs, they're not moving in as straight of a line as we like to believe they are. Their body, because of the weight, kind of goes up and down, just gradually, not anything extreme, unless you wanted to exaggerate the pose. But we kind of have a bounce when we move, and it translates into walking. It's the transfer of weight to one foot to the other. And since Clay is sliding through the door, I have to really try and capture both energies of the heaviness of his walk, as well as the slipperiness of coming in through the door too quickly. Perfectionism is another enemy here you do not want to get caught up in. I'm blocking out just the shapes for now. I don't necessarily need them to be like perfect fingers. Like, they're not going to look like that at the end of the process. But they're going to start that way. Personally, I think my sketches are a little too messy, but when I'm animating, I don't really hold myself to that standard. Mainly because I don't want to think about too much. I just want to get my character moving. Might have to let my dog out here pretty soon. There's someone pulling up, and the last thing I want him to do is bark into the microphone. Okay, you see how his hand is up on the door in this last shot? He's the red sketch in the background. It's coming down, and I'm still going to try and aim to make that arc. Quick reminder, if you weren't here last stream, the arc is the path in which an animation follows. Usually it looks like a curve, hence the name, arc. And while not all animation are in arcs, a great majority of professional films were made using the arc. Because the motion of going around in this half circle helps with the flowing of the animation, and in my opinion, always made it look nicer. So I'm gonna try and fix this, as I think it looks alright, but I might want to have his hand out a little bit. Another difficulty I find with this shot is the idea that since Clay is coming through the door, he is going to grow just slightly because... Okay, look at it this way. Your canvas is the camera of your shot. And if he's further away from me, he's going to be small. But as Clay comes forward through the door, he's going to get slightly bigger just because he's coming towards the camera. But as he turns, he should maintain the size. This is how we create the illusion of perspective and a handheld camera. Okay, so he's taking a very big dive here. So I think I'm going to just move him over just slightly. Okay, so this is all I'm going to do for Clay in the beginning, is just kind of rough out his shape and add a bit of his clothes. But I'm not going to spend a long time on them, because that's for the line art phase. The only clothes I'm going to draw out in detail is the apron and the ending of the sleeve, because those are going to have a little bit of motion when you move. Animation is a lot of prioritizing. It's good to know what you'll be prioritizing in each shot. For me, it's shape first, detail second. We could have another shot of him ducking down here, but I think we're going to try and go without it just to see what it looks like. Don't be afraid to experiment a little bit in your animations. If you're not quite certain how something looks yet, just put it down on the page and see what works. I always get this problem in my head where I think that I need to have every frame be exactly perfect because I don't want to go back and fix it. When the truth is, a lot of animation is trial and error. Like this, for instance, the anatomy is totally off, so I'm going to use this as an opportunity to slowly put it back together again. Oh, I almost forgot. Feel free to get your own tablets out to dust off that sketchbook. I'm just here to be your background noise. And a little bit of an advice coach. Nothing serious, though. Just a little bit of me rambling. I don't know if anyone else does this, but I like taking apart my sketches using the lasso tool. Is it professional? No. Does it look clean? No. But I think it really helps me in this stage, so everything's not permanent. The line I put down isn't going to be my final take of the scene, nor will it be my first. It's always just kind of something different. You can adjust it depending on where you are in the process. Like, for instance, now I'm drawing his apron. We're going to see how it looks. I don't care for the head size, so I'm going to reconstruct it. Your sketch phase is very forgiving. And I would use that to your advantage when animating. I apologize for any heavy flashing during the stream because I'm going to be going back and forth between frames. So if you're sensitive to that, I would suggest clicking away now. Look at that fist. It does not look right. Gonna reconstruct the head again. While we're sitting here doing just the simple cleanup sketches, let's talk about something of which I've taken interest in as of lately. Welcome to the Soul Corner. My little world and... Excuse me. Thought I heard something. My little world of which I'm sharing with you. For today's Soul Corner, I have been dabbling a bit in sticker making. I think I've mentioned it once or twice on the streams before, but I've never really gone into depth yet of what that is for me. I've always really liked stickers. Has anyone else really fallen in love with stickers as of lately? I just think they're so cool. They're cute little collections of characters and things you love, and there's a way of sharing them with other people. I really, really wanted stickers of my own characters, and I had been looking around in an old craft room that belonged to my mom, and I came across some sticker paper. It's not really the best quality paper of yet, but it was a good start. The first sticker I made was actually of this guy, Clay. I have a batch that I may or may not do a little bit on stream. Okay, hold on. Be right back. Dog needs to get out. Gimme. Come here. Oh. Don't be a pickle. Come here. Come here. Come on. There we go. Get out. I'm sorry. Alright, I returned. That dog would not get off the bed. Where did the Apple Pencil go? Found it. Lost it on the ground somewhere. But yeah, sticker making. The paper wasn't the best of quality, but I think honestly it turned out really nice. It could use a bit better of a quality in coloring, but for my first sticker, I really had a lot of fun. If time allows, we might work on some stickers on stream, but we'll see. The internet's being a little weird with the blizzard going on right now. Alright, so this frame right here, next to these other two, is a great example of another step of animation that I highly recommend. You see how over here, when he came through the door, these frames are really close together and a bit more concentrated on his movement? But then these two, the blue and the red one, start getting further apart. Well, when you animate something I'm using 6 frames, but that's because I'm just trying to see them individually. But when you animate something, where your frame is dictates how fast it's moving. Let me draw a little diagram. If I was to want to move this red little circle over here, there's 2 ways I could do it. I could draw multiple frames until it got right here, or I could draw just 2 frames like this, and it would accomplish the same effect. However, this one would be smoother, but slower. This one would be faster, but not as clean. So to solve this issue, to get the little red circle to get from here to here, faster but smooth in animation, we do something that I don't really know the name of in animation. It always slips my mind, but it's basically where we make a gradual shift from fast frames to slow frames. So in the circle analogy, if I wanted to go from here to here with the ball, I would start by moving it 1 circle, but then branch to something further, have a bigger gap, and then slow down as I come towards the end. Doing this creates a slow transition. Like I go really fast, but then I slow down when I come to the end. You can even do it in reverse, where you move very slowly away from the red circle, but then pick up speed, maybe right around here, and jump frames until you're here. So that's the beauty of using a gradual transition in your animation. Like here, I wanted him to slow down at the door. So as he was coming in, there's more frames collected here, and his motion slows down. But I want him to move fast through the dining room. So he's going to start taking wider steps, and his animation is going to have less frames. Remember, not every single bit of motion needs 5 frames. Sometimes just having a few frames is enough to tell a story. Need to fix that leg. A little piece of advice for... What was it? Arm and leg movement. Yeah, that's a good one. Arm and leg movement is, if you want to keep track of the limbs, of what way they're going, some people recommend putting little circles so that you can see the circle take this big arc back and forth that starts up here, and then as it comes down, the circle moves and is now over here. I've never really used the circle method. I mean, once or twice I did. But I think it's a great tool when you have trouble keeping track of the body parts on the character. Sometimes I think I'm just too overly confident, and I'm like, oh, I don't need it. Some days I wish I did do it. Honestly, just do what's best for you. If you're having trouble keeping track of your character's movements, you can try the little circle method. If you don't want to do the little circle method, you can tough it out like I did. It's really all up to you. You know, I've been trying a new form of video on my channel. I'm not really sure it's doing all that well, but I really don't want to not make the content, as it's something I really do enjoy making. So maybe I'll do a second channel. I don't know, that might take a little bit to work out, but look at this. If I made a second channel, it would be more focused on art tutorials like this and conversations. Where this one is going to be for my story plays animation. But we'll see. If things turn around, then I'll keep them on the same channel. But if you all would like to have 2 separate channels, then that's fine with me. You're probably wondering how I managed to put together something like this. The act of just the body moving. Like, how did I figure out how to get him from here to here? Well, you remember when I mentioned that circle method? you can technically use it with a character's head. Almost all characters, at least when I draw them, are drawn as a circle or a square. This is why it's important to build out the shape first when we move our character. Let's take this unfinished frame over here, for instance. It's just a circle. I began this scene by drawing out the circle. And I just moved it along the track. In this case, we're going up. And when I got a motion I liked, I began adding parts of the body, like these weird noodle arms and the square torso. Yeah, only now after I have everything to a standard of which I feel like's alright, I'm going to now be adding the character and seeing if it still holds up. This is why everything here isn't permanent. Like, I'm not drawing super detailed arms or super detailed clothing yet, because some of these frames might not actually make it into the final cut of the animation. Simply because we don't know yet what works and what doesn't. Like, for instance, these arms are really tiny. So we're going to grow them just slightly and then adjust the head. But it does have to keep that arc, though, so we got to remember to keep it up because it's going to go this way. You know, I'm still thinking about that Saturday stream idea. Just trying to wait for an opening. My problem is my Saturdays are all off and on. Sometimes I have stuff to do, sometimes I don't. But for something I'll be introducing down the line, such as maybe even commission streams, I want to be able to get more of an opportunity to not only share the work, but also see you all more. So maybe if things work out, we can do a Saturday stream. Maybe it'll be a Saturday commission stream. And no, before anyone asks, I'm not doing, or rather, I wouldn't want to do streams just for the money, while I will admit, commissions do help you make money. Oh, hi, Tiny Sweet Knight. This is going to be about Clay, the character who was in the Who I'd Be Animatic alongside Alistair. Pretty much it's going to be about all the stuff he has to deal with in his real life, which is boring and not fun. My goal is to have, you know, show a bit of the character through all that, but we'll see how it looks at the end. It is good to see you, though. Alright, first animation test. Let's see how it looks. I actually think the arms are doing a bit too much. So let's go back and fix that. Well, thank you. It's going as good as it can, I guess. I need to slow down the motion of the arms. Let's see. Okay, so the animation has some small bugs, but you know, that's why we test it out first and see what works. And in this case, our arcs are not complete, which is one of the reasons why it's kind of jumping. This is the danger of using that gradual animation I spoke of earlier. Is if it's not complete, it's gonna have this kind of weird jump effect, so. Okay, I'm gonna fix that arm. That is a really weird looking arm. Okay, so now we need these ones. One of the trickiest things of a run cycle is the arms. I just don't always know what to do with them. I mean, I know they're supposed to follow like a certain motion and such. Whoa, where are they going? But I'm never quite good at keeping track of them. We're gonna see if I can save the animation by just reusing, but like this arm will need to be entirely redrawn. Okay, so if it's going this way, coming down, back, meaning the other one's probably about right here. And now they can come out. I am going to fix that arm too. But yeah, to fix that jumpiness we have in the animation, we're going to correct the arc by adding a bit more motion to it. Whereas his arm came up too soon, so when it comes down, we're going to now give the animation more room to really exaggerate that pose of his arm coming out. Hopefully, this should correct the issue with the arcs. If it doesn't, it might mean a frame is missing. And those are simple enough to add, but for a run cycle, it can be a little tricky to add a new one into it, simply because the animation is already moving. Which is why we're going to try this first. Okay, now let's see it. Much better. Remember, it's all about completing the arc. If the arc is not complete, it's going to be really rough and jumpy. But since the arc is making that full curve down, it now looks like someone's running. So that's Clay leaving the room. Tiny Sweet Night, I am using Stream Champ actually. Honestly, quick word of advice, it does lag a little bit. The stream right now says it's healthy, but I've been having issues on and off of it going down in its kbps. It hasn't really affected quality of anything, but it did shut off one time. Other than that, I would recommend it. I think it's really good for streaming. As long as you're not planning on doing anything big and elaborate. For drawing, it works just fine. Okay, so now here's the real fun part. You remember how I mentioned something earlier about a camera? Well, this whole scene is going to have a camera that moves. And I'm going to show you how I make that right now. First, we're going to take our background and we're going to make a new canvas. There it is. Okay, so how I make my camera movement that you may or may not have seen in some of my animatics is I use a separate app called Alight Motion. This allows me to detach my art from the background and I can attach a camera over it that moves back and forth. However, for what I want, where I want the background to do this off screen slightly, like come in and then off, we need a bigger background. Hence why now we're using a bigger canvas. I'm going to shrink it down, not by much, but now we're going to reconstruct the background to fit this larger screen. I am not aiming for perfection at this time, or anything that looks pretty. I just want to get the shape out of the restaurant so that I can add the camera. I don't think I'll be able to do much with the camera on stream because I have no idea what's in my light motion right now. Could be a spoiler project and I don't want to spoil anything on stream. So I'll just take you along the process of making the camera. And again, by extending the background, like I'm doing right now, I'm creating more for the camera to work with. Because let's say the camera is this box right here. I'll paint it black so we can see it. Let's say the camera is this box. Well, what the camera sees right now would be Clay coming through the door and him running off. If I was to treat it as it was right now, yeah, that works too, resizing the image. I like to use a large background because, in my camera analogy, is what we don't see will be cut off in the final animation. However, if the camera was to move, I don't want it to be dead space on the other side. So by making a larger background, I have more for the camera to roam around on if I wanted it to. But yeah, but making the background bigger works too. I often do that in a pinch when I have no other option. And it works just as fine. But yeah, that's why we use the larger background. Don't necessarily have to, as one would call it, this is not going to be seen, but I will add a roof, just in the off case that the roof gets caught in the camera. Oh, and if anyone's wondering why the door is not here, is that the door is animated. So the door will not be on this layer. It's actually going to help guiding me to where the camera should sit, because the door is probably going to move a little bit. So I may or may not have a background copy with doors, but we'll see at the end. Yeah, that's our larger background. Time to move on to the next frame, which I'll have to make a new canvas for, because I'm not deleting my animation. Look at that tiny storyboard. Storyboards aren't meant to be pretty. But personally, I believe there is a bit of character in a storyboard. You get to see the bare bones of what the image used to look like before any adjustments were made to it. For this image, Clay is going to be hunched over a sink washing dishes. However, what's special about this scene is our camera is going to come in from this way. And this is a little trickier than a run cycle, simply because we're going to have to create the illusion of the camera going in and out. I don't know if I'll get to that stage today, considering I'm putting together just the animation portion, but it is definitely not an easy feat. Yeah, but since this is my starting frame, I'm usually a little bit more heavy on the detail. The other frames can kind of look like whatever I want them to, but this one is very important because it's the idea of where I'm starting and where I will most likely end. And I want to make sure the proportions are right, so that when I go to the next frame, I know what I'm doing with the next frame. Now, I could draw this again in a larger screen. Good question. For storyboards, I wish I could show you all, but I have a bunch. It's on a different app. So this is how I make storyboards typically. On a separate app called Sketchbook, I have a large canvas that's either stood upright or vertical, like vertical or horizontal. And on the canvas, I have a pre-saved asset of a little square that's roughly the size of a YouTube panel. But it's small, so when I edit it, it's about as big as the screen, but it starts out like that. And I'm going to draw my first slide in it like this, and I'll copy the square multiple times over and draw my character in that. When I have a whole page, let's pretend there's a whole page of them. When I have a whole page of these, I will crop the image down to this size and then make multiple of them out of one. So I can use less layers and less canvases by just the one canvas, but multiple squares. Oh, there goes my Apple Pencil. Just flew into the abyss. But yeah, when it comes to using them on, say I move them over now to Procreate, they're usually cropped down now to this small size. It makes it easier for me to keep track of. So yeah, that's a storyboard. I think it's a personal preference to use a different app over Procreate. For one, this other app actually has a fill bucket that allows you to add a gradient to the fill bucket, so when it's applied, it's already a perfect white to black scale gradient. And I think it helps me set tones better. Like if I wanted this scene to look like this, I wouldn't have to do what I just did, was fill it and erase it. It has an automatic paint bucket that will do that for me. So I think that's one of the reasons why I chose to do that, so that I could set tones better, simply just through a click of a button. But another great thing about it was, my old iPad I had, about a year ago maybe, its battery ran out so quickly while using Procreate. But the other app, Sketchbook, didn't harm the battery at all. So when I would need to make a long storyboard, I would typically start on Sketchbook to save my battery, so that when it came to actually making the project, I'd still have some left. So yeah, that's why I chose to use a different app. But no, you can make it on Procreate too. You can do it there as well. I just found that was easier for me. Exactly. That's one thing I do not like about Procreate. I really, really wish it had that paint bucket. If it did, I would totally just use Procreate now since I have a new iPad, but I like using it for tone. So what was that? Oh yeah, background. I could draw all this background on a large canvas, but the reason why I start small is that I want to have some idea where it's going to be on a large canvas. Like, I want to work with the size of the camera as it stands before I adjust it. So yeah, so it's going to look a little bit like this. Nothing overcomplicated. Just some silly stuff. Some simple silly stuff. I'm also going to do my bubbles in red. I asked him to wash the dishes. I don't know why he chose red soap. Okay, time to begin the animation. I might animate the bubbles, but for now we're just going to animate clay. So this is background and begin clay. Now we got to bring back subtlety. We use those large frames for fast movement, but now clay's not going to be moving as much. And what he does move is going to depend more on his emotion than an action. So while I'm drawing this, let's set the stage of the emotion. Clay is tired of his day in and day out life. And as a result, that is going to reflect on how much effort he puts into something. Like, say, this job. In the story, he promised his brother that he would try his best. But as days go on and opportunities fly by, he's getting more and more tired and more frustrated. So, I would imagine when you're washing the dishes, I'd imagine if you're upset, you're being more rough than you would normally be with the delicate plates and cups. So we're going to start adding that slowly by moving his arm. We also don't want the emotion to be too exaggerated either, in this case. Some emotions, like anger or fear, can be exaggerated very heavily in animation. But for the image I'm trying to capture with clay, it needs to be small, where you can actually feel him moving. You can feel that he's angry. A lot of this comes back to just general art advice, like how to draw a character mad, how to draw a character sad, except now you're putting it in an animation for all to see instead of just the expression alone. Like, I'm gonna start raising his shoulders now, because when we're mad we tend to tense up a bit. Gonna raise this one too. Not by much though. But if I was to just raise his shoulders in one swift movement, while it would look kind of tense, it would also wouldn't look as clean. But the same expression would be different if I wanted him to be startled with his back turned. It would be a sharp motion then. Honestly, when I was younger, I just figured animation was moving a character from here to there. It wasn't until I got older that when I looked closer at it, I realized that characters express so much in the small amount of time they're on screen. A great example is that new indie show by Glitch, Digital Circus. There's a moment towards one of the last few episodes where the emotions are so strong yet so subtle in the animation. You just gotta really appreciate the attention to detail that the creators went through. I'm not actually that great at changing an expression in animation. I'm really good at capturing an emotion, but it's the subtlety, like the small twitches and shifts in the eyes and the body, that I've never been quite that good at capturing. Oh no, his back is turned. Again, another great example. I'm not perfect. And in these rough stages especially, it's hard to put things together. I've never actually been really good at drawing Clay's hair from behind. And that might be one of the reasons for the confusion, Tiny Sweet Night. But you know, we learn. We grow and learn. Speaking of learning, I've been practicing color theory recently. And I'm just going to be completely honest, I do not understand color theory. One of the reasons why I wanted to practice it in the first place. Yeah, I kind of drew it weirdly in the sketch. Let's see if we can tidy that up a little bit. What did it look like in the first half? No, I cut it off. Oh, I see. Draw a line for his shoulder. There we go. Okay, now time for a more drastic move. We're also going to change the frames. I don't like how quick they're moving. Yeah, I didn't realize how many parts of color there were. I mean, I know a lot of it's about representing emotion, feelings, and all that fun stuff. It really is an art by itself without even adding drawing and animation to it. Color is an art in itself. I think I want his arm to now raise. So we're going to start really being dramatic with the pose for his arm, because I want it to come up. Whoops. There we go. And now we're going to grow it. Because again, these are sketches. We can manipulate a sketch to be whatever we need it to be. Now, speaking about Clay, I don't draw him nearly as much as I should. Oh no, I forgot to draw the bottom. I forget how to draw him because I don't draw him enough. He's literally supposed to be the main character in my comic. Yeah, I find myself drawing Alistair, his best friend, more than I do him. Though I can't lie, Alistair is a fun character to draw. But does anyone else neglect their character children? Because I don't want to, but I think I end up doing so more than I would like. Clay is one of those children, unfortunately. I just don't think about him as often as I should. Yeah, I know. What is with that? The main characters. I guess it's because we know everything about them. We're their creators. Poor Shepard. He's got main character syndrome, but the opposite one, not the one where they think they're everything. They're fading into the background. I mean, it's not even really a joke now, because I have tons of scripts written out for mini-shorts that take place later in the Ivar stories, where Clay's from. Well, see, that's what I was just about to get to. Was I wrote so many stories and drew so many stories about my characters, but I can't help but notice that I spend so much time with literally everybody else. Even minor characters. I think I'm gonna move Clay's head a little bit in this shot. I mean, there's two other characters in the story, Clover and Pearl. And even they have 3 stories dedicated to them. Poor Clay's sitting on the bench by himself some days. My sister and I have a saying for this when it comes to characters that get a little bit left behind. It seems to be a pattern with artists for whatever reason. Well, we call it the favorite character. It's where someone other than the main character gets all the love and attention from their creator. I don't necessarily find it as a bad thing. You know, I wondered about that too. About the whole, they're just kind of there, they're less interesting. That makes sense. An introduction character, that is a good way to call them, or an introduction character. Yeah, I think honestly the favorite character theory falls into that idea too. Because you have this one character who begins your story, and they meet somebody who's like of the other world and is cool and all that stuff, we tend to gravitate towards them because they're interesting. We don't know as much about them. I mean, that's what it was like for Lisa Alistair. I knew a lot about Clay's backstory and such, but there's a lot about Alistair I haven't even touched yet as a character, simply because, A, I'm trying to focus more on Clay these days, but B, the idea that there's just a lot to unpack about him. But yeah, like I said, I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing to love the other characters. I just fear sometimes that I would forget about Clay, and I don't want to forget about my son. Because at the end of the day, it is his story. Actually, where did that shoulder go? It's coming up. Yeah, I think we'll hold it still for this shot. Honestly, I think another issue with Clay comes in the idea that I was actually very scared of his story. And this might sound kind of weird while we're just drawing these frames. I figured I'd mention it. This might sound weird being scared of a character. But there's so many things that I want to represent with him in a story that I, as a person, just don't feel capable of doing as of yet with my skill level. So maybe that's another reason, another theory of why I avoid him. Alistair, just in retrospect, is more familiar. He's written a lot like some characters I wrote as a kid, whereas Clay is just a little different. And no, this totally isn't because part of me, I see part of myself in him, and I totally don't like the idea that he's like a mirror. We'll admit it's kind of creepy how our characters will have aspects of ourselves and people we know. Honestly, I think those make the best stories. Because, I mean, we have experience with stuff like that. Okay, so for this shot, we are completing an arc with the dish moving away. And this could be kind of tricky. So I'm just going to draw out the shapes. Again, we always begin with the shapes when we draw a new shot. Because if we don't like the shapes, we can always redo it. Yeah, that's fair. I think it really is a mix of all points. Every character's a little different. Every artist is a little different. But when it comes to the main character, they're special in their own weird little ways. But yeah, I like the shape of Clay's arm. We'll keep that. It might be a little long, but that's why we're doing it with the sketch first. So we can see it. What it looks like. But yeah, see, that's why I did a shape there. Because I wasn't sure yet if I was going to like what I saw. So I began with the shape. And now I'm going to leave it as the shape, since I don't want to do all the detail just yet. You know, let's watch this one time real quick. It's rough, but I like it. I think I will move on to finishing the line art on my last sticker. Now, the votes for this video were all for the Animatic, with an exception of a couple wanting stickers and con pages. You know what? That's a good point, Honey Sweet Night. They will notice. They're stuck with the character so long and be like, hey, he sounds different. That scares me. I think you might be onto something. But yeah, my stickers I made. I haven't finished any coloring yet. I'm just getting some line art. And while most of the votes weren't for the stickers, I think we did a good job on the Animatic today. I want a little bit of my last few minutes to catch up on these little stickers. They are of my Wolkas. I have 5 Wolkas. Right now, we're going to do the quick line art of Shaba. Now, this is something that I would like to do today. Let's work on Shaba's sticker. Now, these are just the line art portions. Oh, thank you. I don't really know, though, if Shaba would like to hear you call her cute. But who knows? Maybe she'll take it as a compliment. Yeah, I'm making a sticker sheet I'm going to print out here soon, but I didn't want to waste paper by just printing my Alistair sticker. So we're making these Wolka stickers to not only test the color of my printer, but also just to see more stickers on a piece of paper than just Alistair. The character syndrome strikes again. I could have made more clay stickers, but I made another Alistair sticker. It's not my fault that Alistair would look like an awesome sticker. I should be cleaner of this line art, but I am messing it up. I'm gonna do the cheap thing and erase it so I can clean up the edge. There we go. Gonna draw some Shaba stickers. You know, actually, this is a good time to bring up Shaba. She is also a great example of character derailing. Because the story, while it's in much debate who it's about, was originally designed to be Kanu and Remus. Shaba has taken center stage and has forever haunted me with trying to draw her. One of the things I despise the most about Shaba is her horns. What brush do I use? Okay, so let me bring you to the archive of my drawings. I use 2 brushes for line art. I use Tinderbox when I'm making an animatic. Don't know why, I just always like the look of it. I will use this edited brush I called Thin Edge for the line art of pieces like stickers or the comic I'm working on. However, there is a mysterious third brush, a default technical pen I use when I draw large images that are going to be fully colored and have a bunch of background and all that stuff, because I like the tiny size of it. The brush I'm currently using, this modified thin brush, gives off this thick, almost organic feel. But yeah, I wish I remember what it was based off of. I took one of the brushes in ink and I edited it heavily. It may have been a Tinderbox brush at one point, or maybe dry ink. It kind of looks like dry ink. Let's take a look. Yeah, I think it was a modified dry ink brush, where I took the brush, I changed the size and texture of it, and some bunch of other stuff that I had to watch a tutorial how to do. And eventually got the brush I really wanted for my comic, which eventually made its way into my art, as I did like the look of it. But yeah, those are all the brushes I've ever used. Yeah, that's what I thought too. Honestly, I don't know if there really is one brush that artists use. I think we either we make it harder on ourselves by just using a whole bunch of others. But yeah, Shaba's horns have always been really hard to draw. They were originally designed to be that of like an ibex, but at the time I didn't know how to draw an ibex, so I settled for these tiny gazelle-like horns. But then when I did learn how to draw an ibex horn, I made them too long. So for this piece, I decided just to use her old design of the small horns. And in fairness, the Wolkas are not adults in the animation I make. The majority of them are probably the equivalent of like young adult teenager, maybe. So Shaba's horns are probably going to get bigger as she gets older. She just kind of starts with these little curly nibs and they just grow. I forgot Remus's horns. I'm gonna have to put those on him. Everyone else has their horns. I get asked a lot about the designs for the Wolkas. So let's take a moment to talk about that. They're not anything super fancy. They're actually an experiment I did during high school a long, long time ago. Because my two favorite creatures was a dog and a cat. I loved anything that was based off a dog and anything that was based off a cat. You might start seeing where the name comes from. So I combined my favorite features of the two animals into what we have now, the Wolka, a large canid-like creature with cat ability and flexibility. I'm gonna make like a guide at some point to Wolkas, but I haven't decided where I would put it. Yeah, but this is just a little bit more than just a cat and a dog, though, because you might notice that each Wolka has a pair of horns. And these horns are very specific depending on what role they play. Excuse me. What do we call it? Shaba is of the Wolka of the Fang, meaning that their primary tool is teeth over anything else. And while they do have horns that they can fight with, they're most likely going to rely more on their teeth and combat skills than anything else. For my other Wolka, Syria, she is the crown. He's the crown. Let's see. There's Wolka of the Stone. He's Kanu. They're holders of an ancient history that honestly to me sounds a lot like a cult, but that's a whole thing in itself. There's Wolka of the Claw, which is what Remus is, where while they have horns and they are 100% capable of using their horns, they rely heavily on these large serrated claws and have an extended thumb. You don't see it here, but they have a thumb that comes off and allows them to have a better grip. Then there's her. I think she's Wolka of the Heart. Yeah, Wolka of the Heart. And their main ability is based off a deer. They do not partake in any forms of combat and are more like peace-loving Wolkas that care for the support of their groups. We discussed Wolkas of the Fang. And then there's Wolka of the Crown. The Crown are defenders, and they protect the Wolkas of the Stone, hence why they're called Wolka of the Crown. They rely, obviously, using their heads for situations both mentally and physically. So that was a very quick, rough rundown of how the Wolkas work. And I hope to expand upon it in the future, with either art or maybe some form of storytelling. Yeah, so each Wolka's horns represent a different ability. Let me check Shaba for any weirdness. Yep, I need to adjust the eye just slightly. An art crime of mine is not switching the canvas around as much as I should. They are different groups, 20 Sweet Night. They are like the subspecies of like lion, tiger, puma, and leopard. They're all big cats, but they're like different categories of cats. The Wolkas are all different kinds of Wolkas. Like they fall in the same family, but each one is a little different. Okay, I don't like that mane there. We're gonna fix it. Okay, the trickiest part about one another good tricky part about Shaba is the mane on her back. Like, after I just explained all that, now I'm gonna throw a curveball from left field. Shaba was supposed to just be like a hyena type canine, combined with a gazelle and a lion. Because that's what everyone's based off, is some horned animal, some big cat, and some dog. However, I could not shake the idea of a zebra-like mane. The thick, coarse texture that stands up on its own like it has a ridge. I loved the mane so much, I couldn't get it out of my head, and I just had to give her it. So she's the only one who breaks this law. Because I just thought it looked too cool not to include on her. It seems our time has come to an end. So, what did we get done today? We touched a little bit on stickers, but more importantly, we completed this animation and ready for the line art phase. It's not perfect, but that's not what a sketch is meant to be. A sketch is to give us our idea on what we have. That too, we also did break a few rules today when it comes to the species we create. But I gotta go make some dinner. And I will see you all very soon. Keep making stories, and I'll see you all in the next stream.